Hare Krishna. So we welcome all the devotees who have joined us for this evening session on Devotee Care. We have a panel of doctors with us who are also connected to International Society for Krishna Consciousness for a very long time. They're all in the medical profession. Uh, and we are specifically here to discuss about devotee care in the context of physical health care and emotional and mental health care. As all of us are aware, Srila Prabhupada would always sign off his letter saying, "Hope this meets you in good health." And therefore, this is a very important element in devotees' lives. And we are very fortunate that we have an illustrious team of devotees. And the format for today's discussion would be I would be asking some questions to some of these devotees, and then they would be sharing their realizations. I'll begin with Dr. Sanjiv Agarwal, who, as you can see, is already dressed for the occasion. He's a consulting urologist, Hammersmith, Charing Cross, and St.Mary's Hospital at the Imperial College NHS Trust in London, and he's an honorary senior lecturer in Imperial College School of Medicine in UK. He's also a trustee at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, ISKCON Temple in Watford. He's involved in various management roles, in ISKCON and various other trusts also. So I'll begin by asking this question to His Grace Sundarananda Prabhu or Dr. Sanjeev Agarwal, that how would you consider you as a doctor providing value to the devotees' healthcare across the world? Because there are devotees all over the world and there are ISKCON temples all over the world. And you are somebody who has been very closely associated with healthcare for several devotees who have been in London and who keep crossing London, visiting London. So, could you tell us or share with us how would you actually see ISKCON devotees benefiting from the efforts of a few devotee doctors like all of you? And what is the aim and constitution of this particular group?
Thank you very much, Gaurav Prabhu, for inviting us. And it's an absolute pleasure and honor to be speaking today in front of you. As you mentioned that we have been involved with care of devotees for quite a few decades now. And I think it's now not a local problem, it's a global issue. And we as ISKCON devotees can have this wonderful opportunity to bring all the devotee doctors in across the globe under one umbrella. And once we have this one umbrella, we can function as a team. This has been recently seen when His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Maharaj was unwell. We had a team of doctors across the globe who were looking after him. And with other sannyasis also, we have seen this across. So this is such a wonderful opportunity because we have wealth of skill and knowledge in subspecialization across the board. And not only allopathic, but also it's going to be a more holistic care. So both preventative and curative. And curative, not only allopathic, but also Ayurvedic, homeopathic, naturopathic, etc. So we have the whole expertise. The other important thing is to, the devotees have a different mindset because they find it slightly difficult to trust non-devotee doctors. So we as devotee doctors can inject that level of confidence in them and help them make the right decisions. Of course, we will not be treating everybody ourselves, but we can point them in the right direction, help them make a decision in terms of what treatment do they need, etc. Plus also use our networks. So for example, somebody is in America, I have these devotee doctors in the panel and in the group. We can refer them to them from that matter, or the same somebody coming to UK. The other important thing is that if we have an IT network, which we are working on as well, that all the devotees will carry their own data. and the devotee doctors will have the access to that data. We don't have to worry about moving their results or scans, etc. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity that we have globally, that we can work together as devotee doctors and improve the healthcare of devotees across the globe.
Thank you so much, Dr. To Dr. Ajay Sankhe, who has passed his MD in Paediatrics from Mumbai University in 1989. He's the director of the Bhaktivedanta Hospital and Research Institute, which is a 200-bedded hospital at Mira Road, and also director of 6 more units located in Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh. And I would specifically ask Dr. Sankhe that in your experience in the Bhaktivedanta Hospital, which is very much a hospital which is centered around primary allopathic treatment. So one of the questions which always comes in the devotee's mind is, we see Srila Prabhupada referring to Ayurvedic treatment, and we are always thinking about holistic approach to health. Premvilas Prabhu, can you mute yourself? In such a situation, in your experience in the Bhaktivedanta Hospital, while treating patients and especially devotees over last several decades, what is your understanding of an optimal holistic approach to health?
Okay, Hare Krishna, Gaurang Prabhu, thank you very much. This is a question which is very important for ISKCON devotees, because as Dr. Sanjiv Agarwal said, all our devotees generally have an inclination to do anything except allopathy, because they also feel that Prabhupada was also like that. For that, I want to first make a statement on that particular issue, that yes, we must sort of take help from any pathy which can help us to recuperate better, minimize our morbidity because of which may happen because of allopathic medicines. All those things are true, but I must at the same time, not because I'm an allopath, but because I have seen losing our devotees when they take an approach which is not very, according to my understanding, very scientific. That means you have some issue which is quite advanced. For example, you have a angina, or a likelihood of very soon you might get heart attack, myocardial infarction. And at that time, when they figure this out, that this is my problem, then they start looking at doing yoga, oil-free diet, or whatever else. And then there are people who will also tell them that, yeah, you are completely okay now, don't get worried. And that's when they many times succumb, or they come to a state which could have been avoided. So yes, we must take care of urgent things through whatever the available scientific methods right now to us. Like I am recalling that Prabhupada Lilamrit, it very clearly mentions that Prabhupada had pneumonia when he returned first time from America to India. And then he was trying Ayurveda, but it was not working and he was becoming bad. And at that time, Kirtananand Swami got a doctor and gave him penicillin, and Prabhupada agreed for that. He said, do the needful. So similarly, the devotees who are willing for allopathy as well as other pathies, that's the devotee we are looking at. If they should be cared for better, because just allopathy or just Ayurveda or just homeopathy or just any other pathy may not be sufficient in today's situation, which is very complex. The lifestyles which we have, the purity of food we eat, the purity of air we breathe, purity of water we drink, all this is not guaranteed. What probably could have been thought of, say, 200 years back, before the Industrial Revolution. So in a changing scenario, we must have a very good holistic approach, and that is the intelligent approach, I would say, because it is also not a matter of having faith. Just to give a small example, when I was treating some patients in the Mayapur festival in the Mayapur clinic, and one person came with a big wound on his leg because the previous day there was a storm, and in the storm some wood fell on his foot, and there was a big injury. So naturally he required injection tetanus, it required antibiotics, he required cleaning and dressing. And I told him, this is what you need right now, and let's do that. But he was not very happy with me, and he said, I'm surprised that you are a devotee, and are you not recommending cow dung? I should apply cow dung on this. So then I had to politely tell him that, no, Prabhu, I am trained in allopathy. So this is what the allopathic science is saying, and this is what is available with me right now. And cow dung, I am not recommending it at all. So these kind of extreme approaches may come because of the we have that faith in the Vedas. So Ayurveda is Vedic, so therefore I have complete faith. So, but that is not today the Ayurvedic medicines, etc. Again, their purity is questionable. So I would say there should be that balanced approach under the guidance of devotee doctors, who are generally always very open for other pathies, because they themselves believe in Vedas, believe in their alternative pathies, and believe in the holistic patient care. So at Bhaktivedanta Hospital, we have not only allopathy, we have Ayurveda, we have naturopathy, we have homeopathy, we have acupuncture. All these pathies are working together, and we have very good results because of that. And there are very many people who have come from US and UK for treating, and we have added that component of holistic other pathies, and patients have got immensely benefited. So I would say this is the approach we must take, which is like we should be intelligent enough and guided properly which pathy to select, and accordingly be safe. First be safe, and then go for the treatments which are not very much documented in a research way. This is my understanding about this whole thing.
Yes, thank you so much. This is really very helpful, because you have brought in a very balanced approach and a wonderful holistic way of looking at all these things with so many years of experience. My next question is to Dr. Piyush Gupta, who's an MD, a board certified internist from Ohio, USA. And you have been one of the main key players in organizing the Bhaktivedanta Medical Association in USA. So may I request Dr. Piyush Gupta, Prem Vilas Prabhu, to share something about the Bhaktivedanta Medical Association and the initiatives connected with this. You have to unmute yourself. Sorry. Unmute. You have to unmute.
Hare Krishna, devotees. Very happy to be in this panel. Thank you, Gaurang Prabhu, for putting this up. Thank you, Madhavananda Prabhu and Sundarananda Prabhu, for your thoughts. So, Bhaktivedanta Medical Association, several years ago, I received a phone call from His Holiness Romapad Swami. And he said that, Prem Vilas, we have a lot of physicians, healthcare professionals, nurses, physical therapists in the devotee community in North America. We also have fellows, residents, medical students, pre-medical students. Why not we create a Sangha for everybody so that everybody can be connected in a forum? It could be an annual fellowship. It could be online Sangha. It could be a database which you all have, and you can connect at multiple levels and have a Sangha for all healthcare professionals, and see where you take it from there. So the first idea of Bhaktivedanta Medical Association was to create a sangha for all of the healthcare professionals. Our idea was we start in North America, and then other countries and continents can also take a similar approach, which has been happening. So that was one idea. Second was that in Western countries, especially in North America, the balance has shifted to the other side. I completely agree with what Madhavananda Prabhu said, that if somebody is having an infected wound in his leg, cow dung may not be the best approach. But in the West, what we are seeing is an epidemic of opioids, for example, pain medication, an epidemic of psychiatric drugs, an epidemic of pharmaceutical medications. So, and we wanted to also educate the healthcare community. In our association, when we organize conference, we are also inviting local physicians. We are inviting other professionals to make presentations on what is called as holistic medicine, Ayurveda, massage, acupuncture. In fact, meditation. Meditation is a very, very important aspect of mental health, emotional health. So that food, there are many presentations which were made in our conference about intermittent fasting. Many devotees are incorporating intermittent fasting in their lifestyle, yoga. So to actually educate our own healthcare professionals and to educate healthcare professionals across the globe, or at least in North America, that was the second goal of Bhaktivedanta Medical Association. The third principle was Bhaktivedanta Medical Association being made up of devotee doctors. There is naturally faith in the general devotee population and devotee physicians. We can come up with position papers and we can come up with guidelines about health and about, for example, prasadam or exercise or sleep or obesity or vaccines. So we can say and publish things which will be helpful. The fourth principle was there are already many things in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, for example, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, or the importance of having regular Sangha and opening up your mind. Now, can we do some research on the Mahamantra, which is medically sound, which can be then published in peer-reviewed medical journals, and chanting, having the 6 loving exchanges among devotees? Can we then publish sound data on this, do research on these, and then publish them in peer-reviewed journals? And then that will be a resource for many devotees to share in a very scientific way with others. So that was the 4 big objectives of Bhaktivedanta Medical Association.
Thank you so much, Premalas Prabhu, for sharing that. I'll ask my next question to Dr. Prasannatma. And Dr. Prasannatma is a board certified neurologist, completed neurology residency at Brown University and a stroke fellowship at UPMC Pittsburgh. And he now works in Jaysinger Health. My question to you, Dr. Tari, is I believe a few years ago, you worked on a very elaborate research on holistic health by taking surveys of members in the devotee community. So would you like to share something from that study of yours on overall devotee health? What was your conclusion based on that?
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Gauranga Prabhu, for including me in this esteemed panel. as Premvilas Prabhu was mentioning, that one of the core principles of Bhaktivedanta Medical Association is doing research. ISKCON is there for almost 50 years, and the one of the things that really motivated me is there is a lot of depression, opioid abuse, and so many things going on in US, and a lot of mortality and morbidity. So I want to look into the literature, or look into the literature and see the concept of Hare Krishna Mahamantra and the philosophy, how it is impacting people's lives, so that we can show the outer world, other people in the world, that by following the simple principles of association and books like and chanting Mahamantra and deep diet, eating proper food, doing these simple things, we can avoid any of or most of the chronic diseases, and also most of the addiction. So with that motivation, I started collecting data from almost like multiple countries, with the help of Madhavananda Prabhu and Gauranga Prabhu. And the preliminary results are very interesting. People who are following this process over a period of, in our study, there are people who are into this movement 6 months to all the way up to 30 years. So the interesting findings are people who are following this principles, Gaudiya Vaishnava principles. They're like, for example, the amount of opioid abuse or amount of any of the other addiction, or even the amount of happiness they get, the quality of life, they are much better when compared to the general population. But there are other things, as Premvilas Prabhu was mentioning about, like, eating and also exercise. Those are not statistically significant when compared to the general population. So I think it's still preliminary results. We have to publish this study. But this is very enlightening experience, because we collected data almost from close to 500 devotees from multiple countries. Thank you for involving me in this panel. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Prasanna. My next question is to Dr. Chetna, who's a graduate from Imperial College as a medical doctor and specialized as a consultant psychiatrist. And she regularly broadcasts for the BBC radio and also features in television and a number of newspapers. So, Dr. Chetna, you are specialist psychiatrist. So the question is, chanting Hare Krishna seems to be the panacea for freeing the mind for all ills and all difficulties. So do you think that this particular field which you are engaged in terms of psychiatry and mental health, is it relevant for those who are actually practitioners of the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra? Because, they seem to be already connected with the topmost.
See, this is a really interesting topic and a huge topic, actually. Yes, of course. So much of our struggles with the mind are to do with misidentification and a lack of complete understanding of who we are. A complete understanding of who we are seems to be the question on everyone's mind. It's just people don't always look in the right place. And whilst, the Mahamantra is there and it works, it's powerful, it is the perfect medicine and cure for connecting us to Krishna, waking us up to who we actually are. And yes, it does pacify the mind. It's also good for the body. It's a meditative practice. The thing is, when you have an illness, for example, when we diagnose an illness, we don't just look to find the cure for the illness, we also have to treat the symptoms. And the trouble is, we live in the real world. And until the full effects of chanting, until the full relationship with Krishna, until that really starts to manifest, we are met with the challenges of the mind and the body, which manifest for a variety of reasons, as we know philosophically, Nartha Nivriti, life's challenges, so many things. So it's important that we treat the symptoms as well as have the cure for the disease. I think it would be a lack of compassion on our part to not approach things from both sides. And so treating the symptoms means looking at it spiritually, yes, but also looking at it psychologically, socially, biologically. The mind is also connected to a brain. The mind is connected to the soul. The mind is connected to the ego. It's connected to so many things. So it needs to be balanced. And this is what we're really hoping and looking to do, that we have our approach to living in this world, understanding we're not of this world, but in such a way that we integrate, we feel happy, and our lives are enriched by our Krishna consciousness, and our progress is not obstructed by day-to-day challenges. And the thing is, mental health challenges often attract people to spiritual life. But in our process, I remember having a very interesting conversation with Bhaktivedanta Maharaj about this research on chanting the Mahamantra. And I asked the same question to Janani Prabhu, because we were, in our clinics, we roll out mantra meditation, kirtan therapy, things like this. And both of them said a similar thing. They said, because the Mahamantra is a purificatory mantra, as well as being a desire mantra, as well as being Krishna's name, but because it's purificatory, it shakes things up in the mind. The Nartha Nivriti process means we see things that maybe we didn't see before. We connect with things that we need to work on that maybe we didn't see before. And this can disturb the mind more sometimes. So researching it may or may not give positive results, because technique and intention, we know this from Harinam Chintamani, intention has a big part to play in terms of what results we get from the Mahamantra. So actually what they suggested is kirtan is a more beneficial overall, in terms of if you're talking purely about mental health in a secularized way. Kirtan has a more pacifying effect, because the troubles of the mind are less likely to interfere. But yes, in short, your answer to your question, yes, we do have the solution in the Mahamantra, but spiritual life is a package. Our relationship with Krishna is a multi-sensory experience, and we want to deal with the mind swiftly so it can become our best friend. So this is what we hope to do through our project here in Devotee Care.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for sharing this. My next question is to Dr. Sanjeev, that in your experience, what are some of the greatest challenges which devotees face as far as their health is concerned? And what are some of the challenges you face as a doctor when dealing with the devotees' health issues?
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for asking this question, because this is the crux of the initiative that we have taken forward. So in terms of the devotee mindset, as Chit Shakti Mataji alluded, that there is a conflict between what they really think and what is being spoken in the scriptures. And this misidentification is also generates a lot of conflict in their mind. Then they have got they've got examples to follow, but then sometimes these examples are taken out of context. So, for example, a devotee might want to, as Madhavananda Prabhu said, might not want to have any allopathic treatment, though that might just be the right thing to do. Now, just imagine there are three situations, and I would specify those situations. One is talking about cancer, one is talking about trauma, and one is talking about infection. Now, these three things require a very acute and time-led management. But the devotees might feel that, I just have to depend on Krishna and just chant and do nothing else. Things will just automatically happen. So that mindset of depending on Krishna is the most important aspect of their lives, but at the same time, not completely excluding what help they can get from other skilled individuals, and that they should take it in a timely way, produces a big conflict in their minds. So what really happens in terms of devotees' minds challenges, that they get confused, and not confused because they are any less intelligent, but they get confused because there is a conflicting view that they are seeing being practiced, and that what they are reading and that what they are hearing. What they need is somebody to hold their hand and say, okay, in terms of time, place, and circumstance, this is the best for you. This is the best in keeping with Krishna consciousness, but at the same time, this is the best for you practically. So I think the one thing we have to deal with is a devotee mentality, and their inertia to ask for help medically. Of course, prasadam is always very rich with ghee and oils, and so obviously and lots of sugar. And so, if somebody was talking about preventing diseases, and eating healthy lifestyle, again that becomes a conflict. So really what we are trying to achieve here, under your direction, and thank you very much for asking me to chair the meetings, is that we are trying to bring all this preventative and treatment information to the devotees through very easy read literature. Maybe once we have the website of our association and bring all the devotee doctors, they can actually access this information. So from that point of view, hopefully will help to clear their minds. Then come to the challenges faced by the devotee doctors. Now the devotee doctors can see, as Madhavananda Prabhu gave that example of that devotee who had a wound in the leg, that the obvious thing is this person needs urgent attention. But this person is very, very reluctant to follow and advise, because this is not what they've heard from their fellow devotees. So the doctors have to almost unwind their minds, untrain their minds to retrain them, so to speak. And that's a real challenge, because then they also want to make sure that the devotees' faith is maintained, but at the same time their care is taken forwards. And I think this is, especially during COVID times, we have faced this big challenge. Now, the other thing which I think devotee doctors have to rise up to the expectation is that we are super specialists, but the devotees often need more generalistic care. So we can't just say that, look, this is not my area, go to somebody else. We have to come to the level of a generalist and try and analyze the problem, which we can. If it's not our area, we can treat it. So I think the challenges going forward would be to stay with the devotee mentality, but not lose the objectivity for what we think is best for their health, plus involve their mentors, their gurus, and the people they trust, and form a joint helping group, which I think would be one of the real main aims of this devotee care group, to try and bring the physical and mental health together with all the subspecialists, super specialists, and generalists and preventative people, to offer holistic and complete care to the devotees. And I think we should not shun from the challenge, because that's what we have been facing for decades. But I think we should rise up to the challenge, and then we would work as a group together.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sanjeev. This is a very, very important point which you have touched upon, and I'll come back to you, after this one more round, and especially on the way forward, which the strategy you have in mind now. This is to Dr. Sankhe. So, Madhavananda Prabhu, this concept of spiritual care is something which is quite unique in the Bhaktivedanta Hospital, where you're connecting the philosophy and the practices of Krishna consciousness to also medical care. And I believe you're also having a research center, and several researchers have been conducted. So would you like to share, your overall approach in spiritual care, and any of your successfully published works in your research center, which seems to correlate some of these for our audiences to hear? You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
So, Gaurang Prabhu, you asked me two questions, and that answer is going to be a little longer. So, before I speak on these two, I agree with Chit Shakti Mataji that the Sankirtan has a better effect than Japa. In fact, I have interactions with people, and one of the things which is little hilarious is that one person was talking, one doctor friend. He is telling the other doctor friend, these people, that means the Hare Krishnas. So, they are always peaceful. You know why? He said, because you see the way they do their kirtan. And in Hindi, he said, they shout and dance and do all this kind of physical gestures, and sara frustration nikal jata hai. So, so this is the external perception of people, but which is true to some degree, because Sankirtan is something together and the collective energy is working on all of us. And Japa is an individual thing, so your own collective, own individual energy may be insufficient to deal with your own mind. But Sankirtan is the process. So thank you, Chit Shakti Mataji, for bringing that point. Now coming to the spiritual care department of the hospital. So the whole hospital itself was set up for spiritual care. We had, when we set up the hospital as just budding doctors at that time, in 1998. So we had these three foundational principles why the hospital should exist. They are called the three V's of Bhaktivedanta Hospital. So one is the V for Vaishnav Seva. That means we wanted to treat devotees and help them in their health issues. The second was Vaishnav Dharma Prachar. That means preach the glories of the Krishna consciousness movement and Krishna consciousness. And third was the Varnashram. That means each one, according to his own occupation, he serves in a spiritual atmosphere with the thought of Sam Siddhir Haritosha. So that was the purpose. And right from beginning, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, we are very grateful to him for keeping that, the compass, a very clear direction. That he always told us that many of the hospitals in Europe and America, they began with the same understanding that what you are beginning the Bhaktivedanta Hospital. That is to propagate or preach the glories of Lord. For them it was Lord Jesus Christ. They were missionaries. But over a period of time, commerce takes over. And then the spirituality goes back. So his idea was very clear. He said, the day spiritual care stops, hospital should stop. So that's our guideline. So from that angle, in the initial period, we were all the doctors who were devotee doctors, they were trying to do spiritual care while treating the person from physical point of view. And they themselves, in various ways, we had the kirtans going on in the hospital, prasad distribution, etc. But there was no concept as a particular department who was taking care. So in the year of 2000, when we had a meeting with Maharaj, Maharaj said, what's the issue? And then we said that, we are not very satisfied with the spiritual part. And that's when Maharaj told me, okay, Madhavananda, you do the spiritual care and let somebody else become the director. So he basically showed that how important it is, because I was the director at that time. So that's how Raghunath Prabhu came as a director, and I took charge of setting up the spiritual care department. So in the spiritual care department, basically we have spiritual care for the staff and doctors, patients and relatives, and community at large. These are the three levels where the spiritual care goes. Of course, this is probably possible only in India to this degree. In other countries, it may not be easy at all. There is some other way we'll have to look at it. So in that, the patient care and the patient's relative care, that includes the right from birth. Like we have patients who are the pregnant ladies, and they enroll for the beginning of life care. So it starts with beginning of life. So we call it BOL care. So that's where some people who are willing, they are taught the Garbhadan. Those who are already pregnant, then there are certain things which are told to them. So there is a full unit in the spiritual care department which handles this. Then once they are born, till 5 years, of course this is just started 1.5 to 2 years back, but this is part of it. And then they are taken care and guided further on how to raise a child as a parent. So naturally the parents also, they imbibe the process of Krishna consciousness. Then there is when the person is living and is in the hospital, then our patient care counselors, the spiritual care counselors, they go to their bedside, just like a nurse has her own TPR chart, vitals, etc. There is information which is collected by the counselors or spiritual care assistants, and that is processed, not in front of the patient, after coming back and then writing down. And we sort of understand, okay, what is the level of spirituality, what kind of intervention he will need. And in that way, we categorize the patient. So for example, somebody who is really ready, so he is like the A+3 patient. That means he is ready. So he can probably, while going home, he might be taking chanting beads and go home with that conviction. And somebody might be at 0 level, which is like he doesn't believe in anything like God or anything like that. So 0. So those kind of categorization, and then accordingly, next day's spiritual care is planned, and it is given according to the patient's need and the readiness of the patient. And the main part of this whole spiritual care is actually emotional care, because the emotions are very turbulent at that time, particularly before a major surgery, or somebody is facing a very dangerous illness which can cost his own life. So there are questions of life and death. So it's a very turbulent period for the patient as well as the relatives. So both are taken care. And then there is a next grade where we certainly know, of course, we have a palliative care department. So there are people who are already certified that this person is terminal. But there are certain patients who come as curative patients. They come for actually cure. But while in the hospital, we understand, okay, now he is not going to get cured. That's when the end of life team comes in, and they start talking to the relatives, giving them spiritual care to the relatives, taking care of the patients. So, and there are the end of life is very beautifully done here. There are, we call it the 6 loving exchanges between the relatives and the patient, what they should talk to each other. Then, for example, we have always appreciated you. We will try to carry on what you have done, etc. Like the assurances, and please forgive us for whatever wrong we might have done, and do not worry, we do not hold any grudge against you, etc. So those kind of loving exchanges. And then when this person actually passes away, that time Gangajal is given, Tulsi leaf is given, Gita's 2nd chapter is chanted, and those who are not belonging to the Sanatan Dharma, Hindu Dharma, then for them some other pastor may come and read Bible or Quran, whatever is necessary. So this is overall the spiritual care department's function. And also they are responsible for maintaining the spiritual ambience of the place. That means the right photos at right places, the Prabhupada's chanting throughout the day, the 4 prayers throughout the day, where staff comes together and prays Sikshastakam prayers just before their shift starts. And then various festivals which are Vaishnava festivals for the whole staff and the doctors. So this is overall the functioning. Coming to the research point of view, The research of spiritual care, we have published so far about 5 papers. One is for the cancer patients and how they cope up with that, the coping mechanism. Another is on the myocardial infarctions, post-angioplasty patients. Another is on depression, and 2-3 more. I don't remember the exact details. I don't have it here right now. And all these are showing extremely gratifying results. And when Prasanna was here, he presented to me his cases of Hare Krishna Mahamantra on heart rate variability. It was excellent, and we are considering this might be our also, on a larger scale, because he has taken few cases, but it's a very, very important pathway to do it. And we have also recently, we have not published this part, but on the staff, the intervention of 10 minutes of chanting Hare Krishna before their duty begins. What is the effect? So that we have just taken up. I like that. This research department, apart from spiritual care, is actually the research department started in Bhaktivedanta Hospital because we wanted to do the research on spirituality, because all other research are being done. But now we are also doing researches on the other aspects. So one good result at present during the corona time is the adjuvant therapy, which has cow urine as part of the adjuvant therapy. So the formulation is called as Ayurko. And we have tested about 120 patients with corona with their CT values and symptomatology. And again, it's a beautiful result, and we are going to do further results on next 500 patients. So we have sent it to Lancet, and they have already agreed for review and hopefully gets accepted. But if it gets accepted, it will have fantastic value on how the cows will be so beneficial for the whole world. So that is one research which has been just concluded just last week, and where even the IIT Mumbai team is involved in the formulation, etc. So let's hope for its publication in Lancet or any other journal. And apart from that, many other researches are going on lifestyles, etc., because that is our main purpose, to prove that the lifestyle of Sanatana Dharma is extremely healthy. So this is in brief, I would say, whatever I had to say.
Thank you very much, Madhavananda, for details about the Bhaktivedanta Hospital, especially the spiritual care. So this question is to Chit Shakti Mataji, especially with respect to now mental health, because both Dr. Sanjeev and Madhavananda Prabhu have spoken in great detail about the physical care part of it. So especially when it comes to devotees, do you have anything specific when it comes to recommendations you would make on, apart from the regular devotional practices which we are doing, in your experience, what specific safeguards devotees should keep in mind, especially to protect their emotional and mental health?
So, I think the way our devotional lifestyle is set up, I think we underestimate how beneficial it is also for us physically and mentally. For example, our mode of goodness lifestyle that's recommended by Srila Prabhupada, like our ISKCON sandwich, where we start with the morning program, where we go about our day-to-day services and activities with an internal attitude of service to Krishna. And meanwhile, engaging in activities which, initially start off in line with our nature, and then as we become more surrendered, of course, we can offer any service. And closing the day out with Krishna conscious activities on a framework of having healthy, loving Vaishnav relationships. All of these things, they speak to and have been, evidenced through scientific research to support our mental well-being as well as our physical well-being. For example, going to bed early and rising early is good for our mental health as well as our physical health, because we know our biological sleep cycle is very much tied into the time of day, and there's a circadian rhythm. Our brain, our body, our mind, it moves with the movement of the sun, okay, in daylight and nighttime. So sometimes devotees forget this, that they think regulation is just about, yes, it's a supporting activity of Krishna consciousness, but it's actually very good for our mental health. A lot of our lifestyle that's suggested is also mode of goodness. What does mode of goodness lifestyle mean? A lifestyle which is good for our body and mind. So keeping a regular, healthy sleep practice, eating healthily, not just prevents, but also if we're struggling with mental health problems, it actually helps us to recover much more quickly. So I'm not going to repeat everything they've said, but, even prasadam, which is, of course, offered with love and devotion, but it is adequate in terms of nutrition and eaten at the right time in the proper way. Krishna talks about this in the Bhagavad Gita, right? He says, one who eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or sleeps too little, can never become a yogi. So yogi is about connecting with Krishna, connection. Yogi is about controlling the mind. So these things help with prevention. Relationships help with prevention. Attentively chanting helps with prevention, because there are also psychological consequences of inattentive chanting. There are physiological consequences and neurological consequences of inattentive chanting, and there's been research done on this, on sound meditation, on mantra meditation, and the impact it has on us when we are literally spaced out while we're chanting. So those things are absolutely there. I would say on another note that I think as devotees, we, this again echoing what Sundarananda Prabhu was saying about, we can be reluctant as devotees to access help because we may feel shame. And I think people in general, but especially Vaishnavas, feel a lot of shame when they're struggling psychologically, because it may very quickly be branded as Maya. Oh, well, it's just because I'm too attached to my false ego, or I'm still controlled by the mind. So this self-compassion and compassion towards each other, being able to forgive ourselves and each other for the mistakes we make because of the perceptions of the mind and ego, understanding that that's not who I am. What it ends up doing when we don't do that, and when we hold off, masking and not sharing when we're struggling, is that small seeds of what could just be a challenging psychological thought pattern or construct, or a seed of a relationship problem, then starts to grow and become stronger and more widespread, and then becomes more of a mental illness, which again has, even in our community, has a lot of stigma, because is it seen as Maya? Is it seen as karma? Is it seen as a test? And who do I get? If I do want to get help, who do I go to? As Vaishnavas, we're reluctant to get help. I've seen devotees are reluctant to first get help, and secondly get help if somebody isn't a devotee, because they're worried that their spiritual path and ideas will not be taken into consideration. So I think this needs to be addressed in two ways. I think we need to, as a organization, as a community, be better at connecting with locally available healthcare services, because the more connected we are to them, the more they will understand who we are, what we do, why we do it, so that when they do see anyone from our community, they're able to not just offer them excellent care, but offer them excellent care in the context of Vaishnava practices. The second thing is, and I think this is one of the reasons I'm enthusiastic about being part of this project, is that locally and globally, we need to have more of our community who are trained in various aspects of mental and emotional well-being come together and offer their expertise in whatever way they can, where even if it's just signposting, perhaps for some it's educational, for some maybe they want to see people and offer their services, and actually treat them Maybe it's a question of building structures in place within our communities so that there isn't so much difficulty in accessing help, whether that's within the organization or outside of the community. So there's a few things here, especially around addressing things early, that I think we need to be vigilant of even more as a community. So one is the general stigma that's there, the added stigma of being a spiritual person with mental health problems, accessing help early, and accessing help from the right people and right places. Because sometimes a devotee might not even be there. We may not have the skills within our devotional community to address a particular problem, especially if you're looking locally. So that's in terms of what can we do as Vaishnavas other than follow what we've set out to follow, is reinforce that, follow it properly, because that does help a lot. And that means everything. That means not just chanting 16 rounds, following the 4 regs as this is what I'm supposed to do, but with intention, with an understanding that this is taking care of many aspects of myself. Let me do this in the way that it's prescribed, right? You can have the medicine, but if you don't take it the way it's prescribed, it doesn't have the same benefit, the same potency. I think all my esteemed colleagues on this call will agree with that. So take the medicine properly, and then when you have symptoms, you get the right treatment from the right person in a timely manner. And let's shift our attitudes as a community as well. Let's meet mental health struggles with a bit more compassion and not judgment.
Thank you so much, Chit-Shakti Mataji. And I think we have covered a lot of ground in terms of the generic problems which devotee communities face. We have also heard the case study of the Bhaktivedanta Hospital and some of the mental health issues. And Dr. Sanjiv has shared the main challenges devotee community faces. So now, at the last half an hour, I'll request Dr. Sanjiv to kind of take charge and have a round robin with respect to your other colleagues here, especially Dr. Piyush has explained about the history of the Bhaktivedanta Medical Association. And now you are leading this entire project of the way forward with respect to the Bhaktivedanta Medical Association with a global perspective of involving ISKCON's devotee doctors across the world. So maybe you could, convene a conversation now with Dr. Piyush and Prasanna, Madhavananda Prabhu and Chit-Shakti, whichever way you want to take it, and also share some of the plans which you are having for this Bhaktivedanta Medical Association and how the devotees across ISKCON would connect with it. You can unmute. You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you, Gaurav Prabhu. I think I'm just going to suggest a template for the future, and then I'll get all the speakers to speak on that template. I think the first most important thing, Gaurav Prabhu, is that this initiative has been taken by the GBC. And because the initiative has been taken by GBC, it comes with an authority. And I think that's what the devotees will find it very important to understand, that this initiative would not just be a few devotees coming together and trying to start something new, but it's actually coming from an authorized institution. So the 4 components, I think, of the future and how whole project will look like. The first thing is to have the identity to this project. And we have been looking at names, and I think Bhaktivedanta Medical Association is what we are going to be calling this project. It will obviously have its own website. In the website, there will be a lot of literature for devotees to access, and these are talking of devotee patients or devotees to access. And this literature would be in form of the preventative aspects of various diseases, and then information about the common conditions, like Prasanna Prabhu mentioned about the stroke, the heart attack, diabetes, some surgical conditions. Then there'll be a whole section on mental health conditions, and then of course the spiritual health. So that would be about its own entity and its and how it will present itself, and of course then there'll be a social media presence on that basis. Then another very important aspect, I think, would be the collection of database of all the devotee doctors across the globe. And when I use the word doctors, I do want to clarify what I mean by that. That's not only just the mental care physicians and the physical care physicians, but also it involves the paramedical aspects of the care. And first is of course different aspects in terms of Ayurvedic and other specialties, but also things like physiotherapy, nutrition, dietetics, and chiropractor practices, etc. So there we have got that all that skill available in the devotee community, but just it is working very fragmented. So we are looking at two aspects of this. One is obviously a geographical approach. So, for example, there's within the UK, North, South, London, etc. There'll be different groups of these doctors and physicians and other paramedics would be present there. So, if there is a devotee who's based locally there, they can be accessing those devotee doctors. That's number one. And number two is obviously the devotees in terms of their super or subspecialization. So if somebody wants a stroke physician, somebody wants a urologist, somebody wants a pediatrician, and so on and so forth, they will have access to that. Not only that, they have a geographical access to that, but they will also have, even if somebody, a plastic surgeon is in South Africa who's a devotee and he's an expert in his field, we can send all the information to that person and they can give it a second or a third opinion, and that can guide the local doctors to help. So you can see the sky is the limit, but it also at the same time gives us a complete access to the devotional care. The third point I want to make is that we need an IT platform that we are working on. So basically, just to connect these two aspects, the devotees and the doctors, there has to be a medium of language. And if we are going to work on an app, if the devotees have their own information, medical information in terms of their scans, their previous history, their blood results, etc., all with them, and the devotee doctors have access to that information as well. If they're traveling from, say, UK to India, to Bhaktivedanta Hospital, the doctors there will have the access. I don't have to send all the information to them, but they can see that happening, and it will be such an important piece of information. And finally, I just wanted to mention about the spiritual care, because we are all, of course, looking at everything that we are providing medically is ratified spiritually. Plus, in addition, there's a spiritual aspect of that. So it's I would say it's a holistic care under one umbrella from cradle to grave. And that would be the aim of the exercise for the devotees. So I like to bring in different devotees just on that aspect. And maybe I can ask Prem Vilas Prabhu to just come in first and share that with the points that I've mentioned, how does it connect to your efforts in the Bhaktivedanta Medical Association US? And how do you think that we can help the devotees in that direction? Prabhu, can you unmute yourself?
Thank you, Sundarananda Prabhu. Can you please repeat your question? I just want to make sure I understand it clearly.
So I have suggested a format, an outline of what the future looks like for this project in terms of devotees across the globe. Now, in bringing that future of the database, the website and presence, the IT platform and the spiritual care, that model or that project, you have experience with the Bhaktivedanta Medical Association US. So in your experience, how does that fit in with what you've achieved so far, and what do you think are there any obvious challenges, and how do we meet them?
Thank you. So the obvious challenge is devotee physicians or devotees healthcare professionals. They are very effective, I would say, in their local sangha, or you can say the circle of influence. All of us are, this whole journey of Krishna consciousness and taking care of devotees, they go hand in hand. It's Vaishnav Seva. So it really is a very gratifying, very satisfying, very joyful experience to serve devotees and to relieve their suffering in any way we can. And I feel like, I am very grateful to my mother and father for pushing me into medical school. So, it's been a wonderful experience as a devotee and a doctor. But my circle of influence is limited. Having a website, having a portal where I can offer my services to a larger group of devotees, and devotees can connect, and devotees have a one-stop place, a website where they can go and they can get information as to whom they can contact in their local areas. Having a database of physicians with information, having material for them to read upon, having all of the studies and the papers we have done, in one place. This will expand our circle of influence, and it will create a structure to the system. In North America, we do have a database, but we have not shared it on a website. There were IT issues, personnel issues, funding issues. But Sundarananda Prabhu, I think this is the next step for our organization to have more visibility online, have a structure, have a proper system in place, and this will expand our circle of influence to serve more and more devotees.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. I would just draw on the vast experience of Madhavananda Prabhu in this field. Prabhu, you have had devotees coming from all over the world to the Bhaktivedanta Hospital. So you've had to bear the brunt, if I was to use that word, of looking after the physical care and potentially emotional and mental care of devotees across the world, because the first thing they think of is, I'm going to Mumbai and get my test done, or I'm going to get my treatment done there, because they have got this lot of faith in you. So what we are trying to here do is to maybe help you as your institution across the globe, so that we can almost decentralize and help them devotees locally. Of course, there are limitations that, if somebody has to have some test done here or in US and they're not insured, and then there's a question about this money aspect of it. But that's one thing to say. But the second really I wanted to ask you is that you have faced a lot of challenges in terms of obstacles in being able to provide the care from people across the globe. People in India are obviously it's more local, and that can be approached. So how do you see us being able to help people across the globe with what you have been achieving so far, and trying to achieve this as a decentralized approach? Prabhu, can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
So the concept of Bhaktivedanta Medical Association and having a global platform for devotees to get connected with the medical fraternity, which is a devotee medical fraternity, I think that is extremely important and needed. And like Prem Vilas Prabhu said, it is a gratifying experience to treat devotees. Yes, it is. But of course, as you correctly said, it is also challenging. Like I have been trying to create, I told my IT team also that you give me some kind of an app or whatever, you give me something by which I can access the reports or whatever the past histories, whatever has happened in the devotee's life. When they come here, many times, many of them are gurus or sannyasis. They are roaming around, and some reports are from Malaysia, some from UK, some from USA, some Japan. So, you don't know which one was done. There is all a mess. And then you need to treat them. So everything they may not even remember. They may not remember what kind of allergies they had. The major things they may remember. So if there is something which is on one platform, I think that's a extremely good thing which is being, and it is going to be challenging. But it's a wonderful thing, and I think we should work hard on it. The only issue which will come up, like say, I have been maintaining files physically of say a few of the Maharaj, like Gopal Krishna Maharaj, I have a file, Loknath Maharaj, I have a file, Radhanath Maharaj, I have a file. So those who come like almost regularly, so I have their files, and whenever they come, I take out the files. But they're all physical form. But there should be some platform by which we can have actually the access of record, and it should be easily uploadable. That means a devotee can just take a screenshot and just upload it. To that degree, I am looking at the ease of a devotee trying to upload his own information on this whole website. So if that can be done as ISKCON, we can have a very solid platform of, and we have enough doctors. Actually, throughout the world, we have really a very good resource of medical personnel. And not only allopathic, but Ayurvedic, homeopathic, and naturopaths. And even I would add to this, like it's a new variety, but medical astrologers, they are also there. Sometimes they are very helpful because certain directions can be taken. So I would say that this should be included, and encourage all the doctors to maybe be part of it. This is one. The only challenge which will come because Gaurang Prabhu is also here and he is actually facilitating this. I would say only challenge which will come in the future is sustaining it financially, because there will be website and somebody has to do things, and there has to be backup office. So all this will require some kind of thing. So we can think of how to do that, whether it should be just on donations or it should be self-sustaining. And it can be self-sustaining according to me, if it can be done wisely, because many times the free thing is also taken in a light mood. So Sanjiv, you can understand this, what I'm saying. Sustainability has to be there, because today Gaurang Prabhu is there, so he is a popular person, and if he says, give me this much, people give. But tomorrow Gaurang Prabhu takes up some new project and somebody else comes in, he may not be able to sustain it. So we want to sustain it through its own efforts. So I think that should also be looked at. These are my few comments.
Thank you. There's so much of wisdom coming through there. And I think once the project obviously kicks off, they will be we will be looking at these challenges. We'll keep them in the back of mind. You mentioned about the records, and this is a challenge that we have faced in the world. We have got moved to completely electronic patient records in most of the institutions. And we had the same challenge that the old archives of the records were there. And what did you do with this? So slowly, we have tried to digitalize them. And going forward, everything is being digitalized. So I think the world is moving that way. And also, one of the important aspects, what we have learned through COVID, is that a lot of medical world is going virtual. So we could not previously imagine that we could actually have all these remote or virtual consultations, or a lot of thing that we are doing. So I think that's why now, because that has become a very important aspect of our lives here. I'm sure it's happening in India and also across in America as well. So that concept is easily transferable as a transferable skill within this project, because somebody is remotely consulting from America to a patient in South Africa. That's easily doable. So I think that aspect is going to happen. I just wanted to bring Prashanatma Prabhu, because there is an aspect of there's a theory and there's a practical approach. So we have got a lot of work to do in terms of bringing all the information on the website, get all the literature ready for patients in their language, and make it accessible. So he has done a fair bit of work in the Bhaktivedanta Medical Association in US in terms of bringing the on common conditions. How easy or difficult it is you see this as going forward in terms of making accessible this literature to the devotee patients or devotees?
That's a great question. I think my strong belief, I'm a stroke neurologist, so always prevention is better than cure. Most of the diseases we see, anything, if you see top 10 mortality or morbidity in this anywhere in the world, most of them are preventable. All the chronic diseases, they start like 20, 30 years before they manifest. So we always catch the tip of the iceberg. So if we create a solid platform where we can share the best practices, either it could be physical, for example, diabetes management, or pre-diabetes, or pre-hypertension, even before the depression develops, if we can share that preventive aspects in a very concise and simple, straightforward way with a evidence base from, for example, Lancet, American Heart Association, that will be extremely beneficial. So I think the modern healthcare lags in that part where, when there is a stroke, we always have the stroke alert and we have to do thrombectomy surgeries. But once we do that, the same patient will go out and do smoking, to do like don't take blood pressure medications. So that kind of preventive aspect is very, very important. And we are working now to collect best materials. They are freely available on World Health Organization, as I said, American Heart Association, or CDC, any other popular, well evidence-based websites. And also, second thing I want to highlight that I'm a stroke neurologist, as I mentioned before, and if a stroke happens every second, 2 million brain cells die. So we have been doing this tele-stroke and tele-neurology for almost 10, 15 years. What we saw during this COVID time, before COVID, it's only stroke. 90% of tele visits are stroke. But with COVID, even internal medicine, ICU, all the specialists moved towards a cloud-based platform. I think it is very innovative approach, especially during these times, just like Sundarananda Prabhu and Madhavananda Prabhu were mentioning, that any place in the world, either a devotee from Australia, US, or UK, if we have a platform, we have physicians all over the world, we can, support that. And I want to give one quick example that happened recently. There is a devotee visiting from other country to US, but because of the collaboration, we just communicated, and immediately, the tests were done. And even though this software is not available, I just saw through WhatsApp video, and the amount of stress that is released because of visiting from other country, having this illness, and having a neurologist readily available, and also speaking with the general practitioner, this could have done 2-3 months easily, to get MRIs and having a neurologist appointment, neurosurgery appointment, that was taken care of in just a matter of 3 to 4 days. So yes, we have this platform. If it is available, that will be great. In the meanwhile, if we have this communication and collaboration, we can still help our esteemed devotees. But thank you.
Thank you, Vishwanath Prabhu. Yes, that was a wonderful help from you for that very senior devotee who traveled from UK to there, and you solved the problem within minutes. I really want to bring Shakti Mataji into this conversation, and physical health is very obvious. There are very easy measurements. For somebody who's having a high blood pressure, you can measure it. Somebody is having a stroke, you can see it. Somebody is having a heart attack, you can assess it by, obviously the symptoms, the ECG findings, and troponin levels, etc. What are difficult to measure is the mental status and mental challenges a person is facing. One is because they want to put it under the lid and kind of almost go have a denial process, not address that. And secondly, there's also a stigma attached to it. And if you are a devotee, then the stigma becomes far more severe than how could a devotee have a mental health problem? Because your Hare Krishna Mahamantra and the scriptures and the teachings should make you in complete bliss. How could you have that? And if you're having that, then maybe you're not doing something right. You are not practicing your chanting your rounds correctly. You're not listening to Peter Gopal's lectures, or not following the process of 4 regs, or you have got very bad karma. So this whole stigma is attached. So I think going forward, your team's role in terms of bringing the holistic care would be so essential. How do you see us meeting that challenge going forward? Can you unmute yourself, Madhaji?
Yes, I think so. Yes, I'm unmuted. Thank you. I think there's many angles we have to approach it from. I think we have to absolutely start with more awareness and education. Okay, awareness on education in terms of what we know about what mental health issues are, what does it look like, what does good mental health look like, and when it's time to get help. Because I think recognition, like you said, is part of the problem, right? It's easy if you have a template for understanding why something is happening. That doesn't necessarily give you a solution, right? What is it? Why did it happen? Okay, that's fine. I understand why it happened. Maybe it's something I'm carrying from previously. Maybe it's a current live event. Maybe I have a nutritional deficit. Maybe there's something going on in my brain. Maybe my hormones are changing. So just because we understand, or maybe we have a spiritual understanding of what's happening to us. But whatever the why is, it's how do I move forward? Because whether we have a predilection, a predisposition, because think about it, our mental and physical well-being, it's regardless of whether you might have taken birth in this world with the lack of one limb. It doesn't matter how much you chant Hare Krishna or how much Shastra you read, that limb is not going to grow back. Okay, so some people will have a predisposition. Some people will develop and develop a mental health problem because the body changes, your hormones change, the structures in the brain change, life circumstances changes, the mind emotions respond in a particular way. So I think education and awareness is really important, and not dismissing unhealthy or healthy emotions when they come up. We seem to sometimes, and I'll tell you, I'm just being straightforward here. Sometimes we even think we're in Maya just because we're happy. Oh, don't be too happy if you're successful. If life is good, just be careful. If you're too happy, maybe you're not Krishna conscious enough. So it's almost like this, just shut down emotionally and become a piece of cardboard because that's what it means to be spiritual. No, look at Krishna, look at the Vaishnavas, actually a healthy person, someone who's emotionally and physically healthy and psychologically healthy. They actually aren't scared of any of their emotions, because all of our emotions, both those which feel uncomfortable and those which make us feel good, Krishna's teaching us something through all of them. Okay, and that's for us. And the teaching is always ultimately, how can I get closer to Krishna? But that doesn't mean he wants us to always feel bad or not feel anything, right? So I think education, I know it sounds oversimplistic, but education and understanding goes a long way, first of all, so that we can recognize. Okay, so recognition. So I think this is going to be a big piece of work, but recognition in the context of spiritual life, that whole model, body, mind, soul, and relationships, is society. And then furthermore, then the next step, I think that is important, is on a local level, as I was mentioning earlier, being able to signpost and have good relationships because in different countries, let's face it, there's different types of access to healthcare services, right? And especially mental health. We're lucky. In the UK, it's free, right? We have the National Health Service. In other countries, everything's privatized. So how do we, on a local level, I think as a GBC group, we have a responsibility and I think a really genuine service that we can offer in terms of empowering local groups to connect with their local services. So I think that's important and definitely there. And then thirdly, again, if you have skills and you would like to serve in this capacity, please come forward, because if I've noticed one thing is we have a lot of very qualified people in our community, but nobody knows. Nobody knows about them. Nobody knows their skill set. Nobody knows how actually sincere and willing they are to help in whatever shape or form. So I myself, I guess as a limb of this particular devotee care group, I'm developing and putting together and bringing together those Vaishnavas who have some contribution to make. So I think this is really important, this project, in terms of centrally, globally, locally, but for generations to come, because the culture we create now in terms of our approach to the mind, the body, how that fits with our spiritual development. Because if we don't recognize we're having a mental health struggle and don't get help for it, that actually does compromise our spiritual practice. It can also compromise our spiritual relationships. So the culture we create now will inform our children and our children's children. So we can really make a huge difference that will echo for a long time.
Thank you so much. I think this is the key issue would be to have access to information and access to the personnel for all the devotees through either the website or social media presence. And then those devotees who sign up, devotee doctors who sign up to help, should be available to be able to give their time. And on that account, I just want to round up by saying two things, and I'll hand over to Gaurang Prabhu. One is that though we are practicing devotee doctors, but we should not forget that there is a standard to be maintained. That standard should be no less, in fact, more or higher. The bar should be higher than the outside world. So we should not take any chances or have any shortcuts in when we are treating devotees. That's one thing which I think is very important to maintain. Then the other thing is that we, as Prashant Prabhu said, that whatever we are going to be practicing has to be evidence-based. It can't be just, my whim that I would try this out because it's a devotee. No, it has to be absolutely evidence-based. This is what we do in our normal practice. This is what we should be doing to devotees, probably even better. And finally, that we should be aware of the legal and medical implications of what we are doing, because there's issues like, we have GDPR here, issues about, the data information, the access to that, etc. So we have to be very aware. What I wanted to really say before handing over to Gaurang Prabhu is that all the devotee doctors who are on listening to this program or are being reached through our social network or social media, etc., please reach out to us to tell us that you are there to provide help to the devotees and help in this project, so we can all work as a team. It's just that these are just the faces that you see, but it's a global effort. It's not just few doctors or few devotees. And also those devotees that who are watching and will be knowing about this theme, please reach out to us for help, as you've always been reaching out. So with those words, I'll hand over to Gaurang Prabhu to please kindly conclude and tell us anything else that you would like us to know about this project.
Thank you very much, Sundarananda Prabhu, Madhavananda Prabhu, Chit Shakti Mataji, Dr. Piyush, who left for an emergency, and Prasannatma Prabhu. I think this was a very, very important conversation where so many relevant, pertinent issues were brought up. And with the wealth of experience each one of you carries with respect to serving and caring for the devotee community for several decades, I think many of us saw glimpses of some of those experiences coming forth. And as ISKCON is primarily becoming a congregation-based organization, and we have like thousands of devotees across the world in congregations, and many of the temples may not have very qualified doctor professionals in their congregations. They may or may not have, but even if they have, they may not have the kind of experience all of you or the group of doctors who have spent a long time serving devotees have. So it's very important that we create a global connectivity and collaboration. And this platform, which all of us are thinking of creating, a global Bhaktivedanta Medical Association, is definitely going to be a game changer. You see on the screen an email ID of Dr. Prasannath Tadi, who is the secretary to our committee, and Dr. Sundarananda is chairing this committee, and DRTADI, Dr. Tadi at gmail.com. So this is a message to any devotee doctors, healthcare workers in any field of medical science, including physiotherapists and any of that kind. We request any of you to reach out to Dr. Tadi at this Gmail ID, and you'll be hearing more from this group in the days to come. As Dr. Sundaranand Prabhu mentioned, we are in the process of creating a website, and as you know, Dr. Madhavananda Prabhu has explained that, at least we'll begin initially things free, and then as we go along, we will be working out a model by which it is actually sustainable in the long run. But website is something which we can come out pretty soon. And then there are many other initiatives and services which would require a more complex approach. And that is going to be worked out amongst all of you who are actually healthcare professionals. So with these words, I would like to express my gratitude to GBC SPT for giving us a platform to share the latest initiatives on devotee care, and also to all the doctors here who joined us this evening, sparing your valuable time from your very busy schedule treating patients to be able to share your views with the devotee community across ISKCON. This interview is going to be viewed also many times over in the future coming weeks and months. And so all the wealth of information which all of you have shared is going to be of great importance for different communities across the world to be able to interface with you, reach out to you, and understand how they can take medical care and physical health care of their communities to the next level. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.